Oh, goody.
Alright, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Mercenaries video. This one is about a topic I've talked about before, a couple months ago actually, and unfortunately there really hasn't been anything done to fix it. So I know we've gotten a fair amount of new players with some of the changes and events over time, so I wanted to kind of look at this problem again, talk about it, and bring up why Blizzard really should be fixing this if they want this mode to succeed in the long run. So, what exactly is the problem I'm talking about? The problem is with the Mercenaries ladder and the leaderboard. So, if you haven't been playing the game for a long time, you probably wouldn't know this, but Mercenaries actually had a pretty big change made to its leaderboards pretty early on in its life. It came out last October, and in December, around the time when we got the Valera update, they made a big change because at the time, it was very, very hard for even the best players and the most dedicated players in the game to get the 12,000 rewards chest. It was just how the matchmaking and the MMR stuff was calculated. You had to win a crazy amount more than lose in order to actually climb once you got around the 10,000 mark or so. And so it meant that literally I think 3 or 4 people or something got 12k. It was just incredibly hard to do, and eventually Blizzard was like, hey, we want to make this a bit more attainable for other players. But in the classic Mercenaries tradition, they had a good idea and executed it incredibly poorly, because ever since then, the ladder has been terrible in terms of leaderboards and whatnot. So what exactly did that change do? Well, what the change did was it made it so you can now climb and gain MMR without having a 50% or higher win rate. Now, if you've played any of the other Hearthstone modes, specifically like Standard, Wild, Battlegrounds, I mean, you could even say Arena, right? You don't progress on those leaderboards or those higher rankings if you're winning less than 50% of your games. And if you really want to climb all the way to the top and compete, usually you have to win a fair amount more than that, or have at least over that over a large sample size. Well, in Mercenaries, that is not the case. You can have, I think, as low as a low 40% win rate, and as long as you play enough games, you will gain more MMR than you lose from your wins and losses. And so basically, it turns the game into who can play the most rather than who is actually playing the best and winning the best. And that's definitely a problem for people who want to take the game more competitively, because it's also compounded with a whole other problem, which is internal MMR and how that impacts queue times. So for anyone who doesn't know what internal and external MMR here, we're on the leaderboards here. We can see these numbers here, the number that you see in the game, that is your external MMR. That's the number that tells you you're at this rank, you get your rewards based off that, all that good stuff. However, there's another number we do not see that is correlated with your account, and that is your internal MMR. And that is kind of Blizzard's system saying, hey, this player is at this kind of skill level or this skill bracket. Let's only pair them with other people in that similar bracket. Now, the intention behind it is good, right? You want it so you're not having your veteran, dedicated, hardcore players running into people who just started the game or have a lower skill level and whatnot. You want it to be balanced, right? So again, the intention is good, but the execution's really, really bad in Mercenaries because it leads to some of the worst queue times of any mode. I mean, if you've played high-level Mercenaries at all, you've experienced this, and it only seems to be getting worse right now with the current state of the meta and the lack of content. Queue times even seem to be going up even more because people just are not interested in the Trigor meta right now as much and all the stuff that comes along with that. But the bigger issue is because of how internal MMR works, me, for example, most of the time I'm playing Mercenaries, unless I get lucky, a a lot of the times I'm in a 3 to 5 minute queue. So I'm sitting there waiting to play the game for 3 to 5 minutes. And if someone has a lower internal MMR than me, then a lot of the time they can find a game quicker. And because they can find a game quicker, it doesn't matter if you play better or win more or whatever. If someone can get in a game in 1 minute where it takes you 3 to 5 minutes, they're just going to be able to play more games than you. And there's really nothing you can do about that. Like, the game does not let you play the game at a rate that which it lets other people play the game. And the current way the system works and how it rewards people who play the most rather than play the best means that people are incentivized to kind of try and mess with their internal MMR or find a way to abuse the system if they want to come out on top, because realistically, it's not possible to do that through normal gameplay and merit. Like, it's just not currently possible. And that has led to something that we've also seen before in the past, a little bit more recently, was SparkBot, but Spark was far from the only person doing it, but that's bots. There are a ton of bots in this mode. In fact, we're looking at the final results for the April season right now. We can see Board King here has 46,000 rating. Now, you may notice that the second two behind him just over 30,000, and then it falls off pretty quick. The mid to high 20s, but a lot of people didn't even get over 20K, and yet there's someone with over 46,000. Well, how is that possible? Well, luckily, we do have access to a tool that lets us see information for players who are on the leaderboard, Donkey's site here. And I'll leave a link in the description if you want to see this graph for yourself. You can actually change it to, depending on which player you want to view. You just have to replace the name in the URL with another name. However, they do have to be on the leaderboards for Donkey to extract this information. But this is a graph, and what this graph shows us is, this is, I think, the past week. It shows us this player's record in Mercenaries. So we can see right now it's the new season, so we can see all their climbing in the new season. But if we go back, we can see, they got up to 46,000, and this logs all of their games and whatnot. And the thing with this is, if we look at how many games they've played, this is a straight line. And this is a full day. Right here, that's like 2 full days. Like, it is very, very obvious this is not a person playing the game. This is a computer or a program that is just queuing into the game and most likely running the same actions over and over and over again. Now, it is possible to counter a strategy like this. You find, one winning line against a comp like this, and as long as you're queuing into this person, you will always win. But that doesn't stop them from getting to the top of the leaderboard, because it doesn't matter if they lose a bunch of their games, because as long as they win a handful of them, just the sheer amount of time that they're able to play, because it's not a person playing it, allows them to just skyrocket to the top, because they're always gaining MMR. And there's nothing you can do to compete with that. And if they do end up losing a bunch, that starts lowering their internal. So then they start being able to have faster games, which allows them to climb even faster and gives them better odds of their bot comp working, because as the MMR internally gets lower, they'll probably run into less skilled players. So this is a really big problem that has been impacting the game for 5 months now. And I've talked about it with a bunch of other players, creators, and whatnot. And it's just really, really not a good thing. And it's kind of shocking that they haven't bothered to change this in some way. The only change we've gotten since the initial change where this system was implemented was a month or 2 months ago or something. I think it was 2 months ago. They removed the 14K MMR cap. Before, it used to cap out at 14,000 once you got there, and then it was kind of just random. But it was like a think on EU there was like a 70-person tie for first at 14K or something ridiculous. But now, removing that didn't fix anything. It just made it so that now the people who cheat and abuse the system get to have the fancy top rank thing next to their name. And like, we're not competing for anything other than like a sense of accomplishment or whatever. So it's not like they're even getting anything out of it, which makes it even more ridiculous that they're bothering to cheat this much, because it's like we're not competing for a Masters Tour invite or any kind of competitive scene or anything like that. But it really sucks for people who want that sense of accomplishment of trying to see if they can make a great comp and climb to the top of the leaderboards, because it doesn't mean anything in its current state. It just doesn't matter. Like, it's really unfortunate, and it's bad for the long-term health of the game. Like, I talked with Frankie a little while ago, and he said even though the Trigor meta has its problems, he'd probably be playing a lot more right now if the ladder and the leaderboard wasn't so messed up. And kind of queue times go along with that, but he definitely emphasized that the rank basically not mattering and not being attainable for the best players is really disincentivized him as a competitive player. So that sucks. It's like, it's really, really unfortunate, and he is far from the only person I've heard that from. So it's like, they really need to fix this. One of the ideas that I think would be the simplest way to fix this without reinventing the whole wheel or whatever is all they have to do is essentially re-implement what launch Mercenaries had for a system, because you could not do this at launch in Mercenaries. However, they just need to make it so the new system where you can gain MMR easier, that's fine until you get to, you need to make a cutoff point, whether that's 8K, 10K, 12K, whatever you want it to be. Let's say 12K is legend, right? A legend equivalent, because you get your 5 packs. Once you get to 12K, they could make it so, okay, you're no longer gaining more MMR for a win than you are for a loss, or it starts going down once you get to 12K. So you need to get that greater than 50% win rate if you really want to climb in the higher ranks above 12K. I think that'd be a really great solution that kind of satisfies both players, because it still allows more people to get the rewards at 12K, which was kind of the intention. And then after that, it gives competitive players a way where they can actually compete and try and earn a spot on the leaderboard. And so that's kind of what I think would be the best way to do it, because then these bots, they could not compete and get to the very top if they had to maintain over a 50% win rate, because they just don't. A lot of the times they do not maintain that high of a win rate. And if they ever did start winning more, they would eventually run into higher ranked players again, and then they will probably lose a lot, because higher ranked players usually can figure out how to beat a bot pretty quickly. But they did deal with Spark bot in the past. If you weren't around for that, there was a bot basically doing the same thing about a month or two ago, who just very blatantly botted their way all the way to the top of NA. This isn't just a thing on NA. Like, if we look over on EU here, we can see Fisher in number 2 and number 3, and they were number 1 for a while. This person's either abusing a bot or just abusing 2 accounts, because the Mercenaries pool is small enough that if you get 2 accounts near each other in MMR, you can essentially just win trade with yourself. It's like, it's really, really ridiculous, and it's kind of insane that we haven't had even like any kind of communication about this being fixed. Like, I think they thought they were throwing us a bone with the 14K fix, but that just made it worse. So this is something that really needs to be fixed. I know there's a long list and stuff of stuff in Mercenaries that needs to be fixed, but this is one where if you really want people to care about competing in the game, this has got to be a high priority in terms of, like, if you're going to eventually relaunch this mode and try and make it more appealing for a general audience, you have to make a leaderboard that actually matters and is not infested with bots. And this doesn't just affect high-ranked players, because due to the system existing this way, I've heard reports from multiple other people across all ranks that bots are getting more and more common, because not every bot cares about getting all the way to the top. Sometimes they just want those free coins for getting like 5 or 10 or however many wins maxes it out in the fighting pit. And it just sucks for the player experience, especially when you're queuing into them at high MMR, because you're waiting 2, 3, 5 minutes for a game, and then you just get a robot, like, where you know the game is already going to go a certain way. It's like, I want to play a real game, and then that game's over, and you either re-queue into them or you wait another 3, 5 minutes or whatever and hope you can get a real person. So this has been a really big problem. They really need to address this, and sooner rather than later, because it's really killing the interest that we had from a very passionate kind of competitive player base in the mode, and it affects more than just the top players. This system being as bad as it is in the way that it is will eventually affect everybody, because you're just going to get more and more bots trying to abuse it for free resources, and then naturally the player base is probably going to decline if all you're seeing are bots, and if you're having these crazy queues. It's just not good for the game, and it's something that I really hope they can change soon. But that's going to do it for this video. Curious to hear what you have to say about all this stuff. Were you aware of this? Is this your first time hearing about these issues? Definitely let me know in the comments, and I'm curious to see if we will ever get a solution for this, because it seems like something they have very much avoided wanting to talk about. And we do know the people who handle MMR and all that kind of stuff, it's separate from the Mercenaries team, so it doesn't even have to do with the fact that the Mercenaries team is busy working on PvE or new content or whatever. The MMR stuff and the leaderboards and ladder and all that, that's its own department, so they really need to do something to fix this. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, do remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.